We had police officers, the men and women that we walk by every single day that guard the doors and we say hello to, out there with riot gear, getting spit on and attacked.
I want to thank our Capitol Police officers, and I especially want to just pray for the family of the Capitol Police officer who lost his life during the horrific events.
We are approaching a solemn anniversary this week, and it is an anniversary of a violent terrorist attack on the Capitol, where we saw the men and women of law enforcement demonstrate incredible courage, incredible bravery, risk their lives to defend the men and women who serve in this Capitol. My view is that anyone who commits an act of violence should be prosecuted. And anyone who assaults a law enforcement officer should go to jail for a very long time.
That was then when they were praying for the families of the fallen officer, condemning the spitting on and attacking of Capitol Police, calling the rioters, quote, terrorists. That was the initial response from prominent Republicans 4 years ago to the deadly insurrection. Fast forward to today, and the leader of the Republican Party, the one of law and order, has sent many of those violent rioters, many of whom beat cops, back onto America's streets. Let's bring into our conversation Sarah Longwell, publisher of The Bulwark, host of the podcast The Focus Group. Mike is still here. Sarah, this was a vulnerability for Trump in the election. This was the most unpopular thing we could find that he ran on, pardoning the violent insurrectionists, and he did it. What does that say about how he perceives his political strength?
Yeah, look, I mean, right now he's just seeing how much Republicans are going to swallow for him. And he's probably got them correctly marked as people who aren't going to stand up to him. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't heard a lot today from people saying what Trump did. I've seen some people say, look, if somebody assaults a police officer, I don't think they should be pardoned. But they're not going hard at Trump. They're not horrified. And the reason is that menace and intimidation by Trump supporters has gone a long way over the last 8 years to silencing Republican criticism of Donald Trump, to making Republicans take the voice in their head that knows the difference between right and wrong, understands the right thing to do, but when they get shouted down by Trump supporters, they basically shelve that part of them. And I'll give you a million examples. Actually, I'll just give you a few. But, when Lindsey Graham said he was done with Trump after January 6th, he got screamed at in an airport by Trump supporters, and he changed his mind. More recently, or he changed his tune. More recently, we saw Joni Ernst, who is a sexual assault survivor, who is somebody who has military experience, who probably should have been nominated as Secretary of Defense. She did not think Pete Hegseth was qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And when she sort of made that statement, she got shouted down to the point where she said, just make it go away. Right. And Mitt Romney wrote in his book about how senators who wanted to vote to impeach Trump after the insurrection were chided by their colleagues saying, think of your family, think of your children, because menace and intimidation by Trump supporters is how they have kept Republicans from opposing Trump in meaningful ways, and they've buckled under that pressure. And today, where even though it polls terribly, Donald Trump has walked in and he says, I'm going to do this anyway, and I'm going to make it clear that if you break the law in defense of me, I don't care whether you attack public officials, I don't care whether you hurt police officers, if you do it to defend me, I will pardon you. I will let you get off. And that is one of the scariest things I have ever seen happen in this country. And the fact that there is an impotent Republican Party unwilling to stand up and say anything in this moment tells you everything you need to know about how they're going to behave over the next 4 years.
I mean, the only voice that's emerged as an outlier is Charles Kupperman, who's quoted in your story. He says, what are they going to do to me? But to Sarah's point, that's the only one I can think of. Is anyone concerned with what I think Sarah just described perfectly, violence carried out on behalf of Donald Trump is violence that he'll pardon?
Yes, totally. Because they think that it emboldens them. It's not just that Trump has identified them. It's that they know, or they think, that if they go ahead and commit violence, Trump will be there to bail them out. that they will be doing Trump's bidding, that they will be doing what he wanted, and that they will be rewarded for it. And the commutations and the pardons that we saw are the ultimate reward for what happens on January 6th. It's the ultimate demonstration. This is probably the most high-profile crime in American history. It's certainly the biggest Justice Department investigation in history. It's certainly the most photographed and videoed crime in American history. It played out publicly for everyone to watch on television. And in that case, you know, and at that point, we thought it was a real pivot point in the Trump story, that it was going to be largely the end of Trump's political career. And instead, Trump's career went in a different direction, and he has come back to reward them in the ultimate way. I've always seen clemency as one of these things that cuts to the heart of the Trump story, because it's a perfect power for Trump. It allows him to gain immediate loyalty from the person just by his use of power. And there is no oversight of it. He doesn't have to go to Congress to it. He doesn't even have to go to his White House counsel to it. He can just do it with the stroke of a pen. And to Trump, that absolute power is where he has shown his most success. He runs into trouble when he has to work with other people. He works with trouble when he has to work with other branches. He runs into trouble when he has to work with people who pride themselves on independence. But on issues like clemency, where
for domestic terrorists,
where he can do it himself, he really loves those powers.
So I have to sneak in. I want to press you on where the opposition goes from here. Because you're absolutely right about where everything lines up. And Mike's absolutely right about how much he fetishizes these absolute powers. But, you know, again, as a 448 in the East, we're still a democracy. What